Conditions are worsening when you look at it from any angle. When you look at any of these indicators, we can see that a global economic collapse is drawing near. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I want to get into a few different topics today. Let's begin with this information. Greece's government has raided the coffers of its public health service and the Athens metro as it widens a hunt for funds to keep itself afloat and service debts. This article is out of the Financial Times, and what we're looking at is Greece foreshadowing what will happen in other countries. Yes, that's right. Greece is in fact doing what other countries have done in the past and what will happen in the future. Athens faces a 1.7 billion euro bill for the wages and pensions at the end of the month, and then a 450 million loan payment to the IMF on April 9th. Greek government and Eurozone officials believe Athens doesn't have the funds. Well, let's look at this right away. We are seeing that they owe money in all directions right now, and this is putting a huge burden on them. They simply are pushed right to the very edge, and they are going to continue in this way. Now, what's going to happen exactly? I'm not too sure. We are looking at George Soros saying things are 50-50, and we're seeing a lot of talk about this right now. Now, I can't exactly predict what's going to happen, but I could tell you the individual citizen is being hurt by this. Look at this right here, how they're stealing money right out of these people's hands, and this is no different than what we have seen historically. Much more information in the article here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to show you this. In the absence of progress, some EU officials were accelerating their preparations in case Athens runs out of cash. So right here they said that the European Commission officials have begun looking at an EU law governing capital controls. Remember, I mentioned this recently in the case of growing uncertainty or a non-payment to the IMF. Spurs a renewed run on bank deposits. These are the things that concern me. Capital controls, bail-ins, bank runs, bank holidays, and all of these other things that we have actually seen in the past. This isn't science fiction. We're not talking about these things that you see in the movies. We're talking about things that have happened in other countries that may have been actually happening currently. You need to look into this. Look at the developing nations around the world, and you will see what could be happening in the country that you reside in today. Capital controls are very dangerous. They start off in a way that could be very reasonable, but they could become dangerous very, very quickly. Now that's Greece. I'm going to move on right here to something regarding the US, but it goes around the whole world. Many of the countries, I get emails from all over the world, and people tell me about the inflation rates on their food prices. And this happens to be US statistics out of the BLS. Price of ground beef hits record high in February. I continue to bring out this information month after month after month. It's been going up essentially ever since, decades ago, really, but it's been skyrocketing since the financial crisis. Things are becoming more expensive, and this is not coincidental when you look at the amount of money that's being put into circulation. We are seeing the credit expansion that has been taking place, the QE programs. It's going on all over the world, and here is where it is increasing. So if you look at these and consider it an asset, well, definitely it has been increasing in its value. Now, I'm going to move on to this here, and this is probably the most important part of today's video. 47% of American households save nothing. This happens to be out of the Business Insider, but these statistics come from all different angles. This could be the scariest chart in the world. Nearly half of American households don't save any of their money. You can see the chart further down below. I won't scroll there, but you can see that. I'll put the link in the description as always. If it isn't obvious, this has been a broad range of implications. People who don't save and won't have any buffer should the economy turn and they lose their jobs. Longer term, people who don't save won't have the capacity to retire. These are the things that I've constantly been mentioning, and at least the Business Insider is willing to admit that. So what do we have? We have a nation where people either don't save or can't save. And what happens when they become part of those who don't save? Well, just as they suggest here, when we have an economic downturn, they're not going to be able to afford their lifestyle. So what happens if they were buying a subprime home, if they were buying with essentially 0% interest and things begin to change, all of a sudden they become renters. And then from that point, perhaps they need to go on one of the social assistance programs. And this obviously increases the burden upon the government. So this is a huge deal that is not being covered and not being taken seriously enough. In my book, I wrote this: savings allow individuals to put money aside, open businesses, make other quality investments. A savings account wouldn't pay practically 0% as they do now. And look at the negative interest rates that we're seeing. These rates are set so low to discourage people from saving and to consume their money right now. The intention is to have people max out their credit limits and continue so that they can fuel this consumption-based economy, which is particularly evident in the US. So what we have is a nation that is essentially being forced into not saving. Now, of course, sometimes it's their own fault, but in the same time, we're seeing people who are, in a way, forced not to save. They're using that money elsewhere. I'm going to move on to this here of the Washington Post. Federal workers owe more than $3.5 billion in unpaid taxes. There are many reasons for this, but I just want to cover a couple points. The IRS said they owe more than $3.5 billion, and that's $200 million increase from the year before. Now, what happened in between last year and this year? Well, definitely we saw the GDP increase. Well, that's interesting. Well, at least at one point it increased, and the GDP went up. Now, that's quite interesting statistic right there. But why did the GDP increase? Well, much of that spending that people were doing came from the fact that they had to pay Obamacare. The rates were increasing, and of course that led to what people have to pay. So here is the truth about why people are becoming more poor. They can't save more. They are basically owed back taxes here because they have these conditions set upon them. Ford's new car will force you to obey the speed limit. That's right. If you're not going to go ahead and follow the rules or regulations that they put in place, whether that's for your taxes or whether that's in this instance here where we have Ford's intelligent speed limiter technology. So that's right. If you're not going to obey the speed limit, Ford and by extension the government are going to be able to control that. Now, on surface level, I can understand where exactly they're going with this. Definitely, you want to have safe roads. There are people that get into accidents all the time because they were speeding. But this is really a gray area because then you start controlling people's ability to move. And that is where it crosses the line. People will lose their liberties because of technology like this that could save lives. So it is a double-edged sword. I definitely see the side here where we will be restricting people's liberty. Definitely. This here is extremely important information, and I'm just going to cover it briefly. And essentially this, that we had the United States House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly to approve a resolution urging Obama, the Lord and Savior, the Emperor, the King, to deliver lethal weapons to the Ukraine to fight pro-Russian separatists. So right here, we have them saying, go ahead, be hawkish, get out there and start bombing people. We need to use our money because we have the power of the purse. And this right here is seemingly to allow the so-called commander-in-chief, but I think his true name is the emperor, to go ahead and start another war. The measure urges Obama to provide Ukraine with lethal defensive weapon systems. Oh yes, I'm sure that's what they'll do. The unprovoked and continuing aggression of the Russian Federation. This is what they're trying to defend from, according to them. The resolution passed with a broad bipartisan support of 348 to 48. That's huge. That's obvious that they are definitely in favor of this. And in most cases, the wars are usually bipartisan, willing to attack anyone. That's just the way it is. Most of the Congress, in fact, is really willing to go ahead with any war that goes into place. They are the ones who approve the war, definitely, but of course they're asking Obama's permission, and Obama and Leon Panetta will have something else to say when they just go ahead and act on their own. We saw Leon Panetta saying, we're going to use NATO to approve our use of the US military, and that we all know is a joke. Now, look at this. Speaking of NATO, Sweden and NATO report Russian military planes over the Baltic Sea. I just wanted to very briefly cover this right here out of the AP. The Swedish Air Force and NATO jets tracked 4 Russian combat aircraft flying with their transponders turned off over the Baltic Sea. And just to also note that these are nuclear capable bombers. So this could be something to look into a little bit deeper. We're seeing this happening over and over and over and over again, with Russia in particular being really in this category, and we're looking at them, what's going on exactly. Of course, it goes on both sides. Both of them are doing this. Both of them are really heating things up. We have to worry exactly about what is coming here. This is obviously a big threat. When we have threats, when we have instability and volatility, we will see the stock markets continue to fluctuate. We may see another surge in real assets. We could see them generate their flow more towards the US dollar again. And this hurts other nations' currencies. When you look at this, we could see exports increasing in particular countries because the US is then able to import more. We could also see the exports of the US decline because, of course, of this dollar increase. So this is a lot of things that could happen. Obviously, oil prices would definitely increase should there be a disturbance in that. We could see just other things happening in terms of alliances being forming, and we're already seeing that right now. So that's all for today. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. It is very important to do so. I really appreciate that out a lot. It does help me to get the word out there, so definitely appreciate that a lot. I've been getting so many emails, and I just replied to a whole bunch today. Still getting to those. I replied to all of the personal messages through YouTube, which I rarely check. In fact, it had been 1 month since I checked that. So definitely, if you want to get a hold of me, just do so at david@themoneygps.com. And I really don't reply to the messages often, but I will get to you eventually. But hopefully you will email me. It's definitely a better place to get to me. I will also say that the Insiders is even a better place too, because I reply to everybody on the Insiders first, and then I move on to the David at the Money GPS. So that's all for here today. If you're not already, you need to be an insider. It's where I give out all my best intel for free. That is available at themoneygps.com. You just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.